heal as a team, we're going to crumble. Inch by inch, play by play, till we're finished. We're in hell right now, gentlemen, believe me. And we can stay here, get the shit kicked out of us, or we can fight our way back into the light. We can climb out of hell. 1 inch at a time. You know, when you get old in life, things get taken from you. I mean, that's part of life. But you only learn that when you start losing stuff. You find out life's this game of inches. So is football. Because in either game, life or football, the margin for error is so small. I mean, 1/2 a step too late or too early, and you don't quite make it. 1/2 second too slow, too fast, you don't quite catch it. The inches we need are everywhere around us. They're in every break of the game, every minute, every second. On this team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw our fingernails for that inch. Because we know when we add up all those inches, that's going to make the fucking difference between winning and losing. Between living and dying. I'll tell you this, in any fight, it's the guy who's willing to die who's going to win that inch. And I know if I'm going to have any life anymore, it's because I'm still willing to fight and die for that inch. Because that's what living is. There's 6 inches in front of your face. Now, I can't make you do it. You got to look at the guy next to you. Look into his eyes. Now, I think you're going to see a guy who will go that inch with you. You're going to see a guy who will sacrifice himself for this team because he knows when it comes down to it, you're going to do the same for him. That's the team, gentlemen. And either we heal now as a team, or we will die as individuals. Ideas are bulletproof.
Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday, October 19th, 2011. This is Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. And today I'm joined by my friend, Jerrald President. He's hanging out with us today. And I wanted to bring Jerrald back on because, he's just a really all-around cool human being, great guest, but he's also been down to the local Occupy event down here, and he's seen what's going on for himself. And in fact, if you guys remember my Sunday show, I mentioned when I had a couple people call in from down at the event that I mentioned that Jerrald had messaged me and said that he had seen the same thing going on. And rather than have you guys think that, I just made that up because Jerrald was on my show previously, I decided to bring him on so you could actually see that, not only do I talk the talk, but I walk the walk by presenting the evidence and the people that I actually, said things. I'm not one of those people. I don't say things on air that aren't true, and I don't do shticky radio for just to get listeners. I'm not like that. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome back Mr. Jerrald President. Jerrald, welcome back to the show.
Hey, welcome. Good morning and good evening, everybody outside there in the world. How y'all doing out there today?
I think they're doing pretty good. Everybody's waving to you in the chat room. They're saying hello, Jerrald.
Hey, good evening.
So what's your take on what's going on with Occupy Miami? I myself think that there are a lot of well-intentioned people that are showing up, but there's this core group of individuals that are trying to hijack it and trying to steer it in a certain direction. And we've been, and other people have gone down there. We are Change Miami, Mobilize Miami. These guys are getting out there, and I've been supplying them with hundreds of DVDs to pretty much bring out and give out to everybody there. And last night I gave them Freedom to Fascism, and they played it, and they said that by the end of the movie, everybody was freaking out. Oh my God. So we are dropping truth bombs on these people. But from what you saw on Saturday, we got a few minutes before we go to break. So go ahead and tell the listeners kind of in a nutshell what you saw, basically.
What I saw was a whole group of people that wasn't at the first meeting out there handing out packets from Occupy Boston and saying that we have to have this group of facilitators and damn dragons, and it wasn't no objective to what we was going to be talking about, and they had everybody get in a group circle and wiggle your fingers and all kind of stuff, that you see when a movement has been basically taken over from people that's not even from this area. None of those people that I saw were Miamians, and when you have this group collective thought process, you're never going to accomplish anything because there was never no set of objective or principles behind what we was doing that day. It just sit under this tree, pass out these packets of paper, and we're going to have a dragon, and the dragon is going to go and pull people out the crowd who's, being hostile towards people. They never said, well, what we was going to talk about. There was just no structure to it. And, I came out there because I want to talk to the people and inform people about the IMF and the World Bank and all this. And these guys was not talking about this. And even to this day, I still don't know what these guys were really talking about. They look like some special forces type of cats, that you see over there in Afghanistan with the beards and, the long hair, the clothes weren't clean. It just looked like characters out of, a special forces operation. And I felt that the whole entire movement, well, with these characters, I'm not saying everybody, because the people out there that I met out there was really believing what the true objective is. And these guys who was orchestrating all of this, excuse me, these guys who was orchestrating this with these pamphlets from Occupy Boston, I couldn't comprehend it. I don't believe in the Jesse Jackson chants, and these, let's all sing these, these little hooks of these songs. And
kumbaya almost.
I didn't understand it. You have a guy there with a drum, you have another guy there playing Michael Jackson music while people trying to speak. It just was no cohesion. It seemed surreal, honestly. It seems surreal.
And there's that core group of people that seem to put themselves into certain positions of power. And what's real funny is you mentioned that you didn't see the guy that we nicknamed him Groucho Marx. Now, you said you didn't see him when you went back down there on the 15th. Now, nobody has seen him since I think it was the night before. They had some it was either the night before or the Wednesday before. They had some secretive meeting, and I had done a live show right after they had this little secretive meeting where only certain people got invited to this meeting. And that was the last time we saw him ever publicly at any of these Occupy events down here. And it's because, at least I believe, that Alex from Mobilize Miami called up, and he called out a few of them on air while they were listening. And since he did that, we haven't seen Groucho at any of these events whatsoever.
Yeah. See, now, the one with the must, he was there. It was all the other people that I'd never seen before. He was there, but he was off in the back. He was like in a, I want to say he was like a scout. He was just surveying the crowd from like on top of the little ridge. It was the other guys. The one with the must, he was off in the back. It was these other guys that you just say, who are these people? And it was just a real strange movement. And it's pretty sad, because people out there was really wanted to be out there for a true cause. And these people here, I still to this day, I don't know who they were, Popeye.
Well, I've seen evidence, and the evidence being emails from their own little organization that were forwarded to me by somebody, like this own little group of planners or whatever, quote unquote organizers, and a lot of them are dealing with people that are involved with the Zeitgeist movement and all this other stuff, and that stuff kind of gets a little cultish, and some of the stuff that they were talking about. We'll get more into that when we get back. We're going to break. Stay tuned.
Yo, Gemini,
Jerrald President's hanging out with me.
Are you a devil or an angel?
We'll be right back.
And I say both, as I continue to blame the Knights Templar and the Hospitallers, the real reason New York lost their towers. Don't sit back or hesitate to react to the impact. Many taking a nap. In fact, they would fake an attack to make way for the Patriot Act.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm hanging out with my friend, Jerrald President, and we're discussing what both of us have witnessed, observed, and during the break, Jerrald told me something that I had, I really haven't had a chance to talk to him verbally since the last time he was on. We've just, gone back and forth through the emails. And that, that loses a lot in translation. There's usually a story, as there's so many words. It's much easier just to tell the person, face to face or, over Skype or whatever. And Jerrald was telling me during the break that he not only was he invited up to speak, but as soon as he started to speak, he had someone come up and, try to rip the microphone out of his hand, pretty much interrupt him by playing drums and all this other crap. So, Joe, go ahead and tell listeners exactly what you yourself went through. So it's not just, it's not just him, it's not just hyperbole. This is literally Jerrald experienced, this kind of crap. So go ahead and tell listeners what you just told me.
Yeah. When they set up the PA system, the guy sought me out and asked me to come up there and speak to everybody, because from the last time I spoke, and the reception I got from that. So I that's what I came for. I came up there to speak to the people about the economic system. And when I get up there, it's this one guy, a Latin dude, and he has this curly hair, and he's sitting there playing the bongos. And so the guy who asked me to come up there and speak, he handed me the PA system with the giant speakers. But the guy with the bongos set, he has his own microphone. So as I'm getting ready to speak, he interrupts me and says, "Hey, man, we ain't got time for these political speech. You can't come up here with this." And so I looked at the guy, and I'm like, this guy gotta be, this guy, what planet this character come from? I don't want to say what I really want to say. But I'm like, who the hell is this dude interrupting me? So I didn't pay him no mind. I continue to speak. Then he starts playing the drums, and he interrupts me again. So now I turn to him, I say, "Look here, man, I'm not going to ask you again. I done asked you really kindly to stop what you're doing. I'm not going to ask you again." So by this time, the crowd is upset that this guy's sitting there interrupting me. So the crowd starts telling this guy, "Hey, man, stop. We want to hear this guy speak. Stop it." Then he finally stopped. But the whole time I'm just sitting trying to figure out, who is this guy playing the bongo set? Because before I got up there, he was already doing this. And I say, what is this character up here doing? It seemed like just something that was out of a movie scene, where they sent a person out there purposely to distract you away from what your message is. And I didn't get upset with it because, again, when you study these people's tactics and you see how they go out there to get you off your game, I knew this guy probably could have been one of those, what they call them, agent provocateurs. So it was just really strange to see this guy up there. And if people go and look on, the Occupy Miami, and you see all the little videos and you see the speeches, you'll see that this one guy sitting there with a curly hair, and he constantly keeps on playing these drums. And you say, why is this guy up there? Really interesting stuff, Popeye.
That really is. It sounds like COINTEL type stuff. That's the same kind of stuff that they started. They started with back in the 60s with Martin Luther King Jr.
Exactly.
That's where this crap started, and they haven't stopped. See, people think that they stopped. No, they just after they killed him, they just moved on to other targets.
That's it.
And the whole counterculture thing. People. Look, I know 60s hippies like to think that we were the counterculture, man. We were the anti-war movement. No, you were controlled. The counterculture was fomented by the CIA, and it was controlled by the CIA. That was another controlled operation, like a steam valve, like a pressure relief valve. And that's how I look at this whole Occupy thing, is that it was started, I think, by them to be controlled, because you have to remember, Al Gore a couple months ago was calling for an American autumn.
I saw that,
and the American Day of Rage and everything else. So, and then when you look at what they're talking about, it's constantly green stuff, green. Yeah. And look, it doesn't mean I want to drive around in a big SUV spilling oil all over the place and pissing all over Earth. No, okay, but I have respect for the planet. I don't overuse the amount of stuff that I don't use anything more than I have to. I'm not wasteful. Okay, my mother taught me to not be like that from the time I was a young age. I don't need some carbon credit crap, or some carbon tax because, cows fart and it's destroying the atmosphere. Let's get real, okay? BP spill, Fukushima, those two things by themselves, even if they were just accidents, which I think it's more than that, but even if they were just accidents by themselves, have done way much more damage than we have, okay, over the course of 20 years. Not to mention all the other oil spills and, HARP and, geoengineering and playing with the weather and chemtrails and everything else. So if anybody's a danger to the environment, it's these people. These elitist, morons. And then you get the useful idiots that are like, yeah, I want to save a tree. I mean, who doesn't want to, at heart, who doesn't want to, not pollute? And who doesn't want to try to clean the planet up and make it a better place? Yeah, I can understand how that appeals to people, but they fall right into it. Yeah. And you were saying, Jerrald, there's a ton of this green initiative stuff being pushed on these well-meaning people that are showing up. Because I think, if you go down there now to Government Center, they're still camped out there. But now the people that are staying there and not showing up the people that just show up for a few hours, they're random people. That's cool. But a lot of the people that are camping out, some of the people are doing dumb stuff, including, drinking. And I know when I was down there, they were smoking. Now, yeah, real stupid, dude. Now there are some plants that they have in the front of Government Center that they do stink a lot, and they kind of do smell like pot. But you could see people. There were literally people out there at least on Saturday that were smoking, and it turned out some of them were some of these people that had put themselves in positions of power, whether they were an organizer or some underling to an organizer, even though this is quote unquote a leaderless movement, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna say this: the wildest thing is when you talk about the plants, and I remember how Al Gore was talking about we need an American autumn spring, and I happened to be in D.C. I took my daughter to the White House and Congress and all that, and I think it was February. And while we was up there, they have different types of radio stations up there. And so I'm listening to a federal agent talking about how they had been in Egypt for over 10 years. And they had been teaching the people over there about how to have direct democracy, and that they was going to use the social networks. And I thought it was sort of ironic that, at that time, they decided they want to get rid of Mubarak. And again, it's the same thing what's happening right here in the United States. The Occupy Miami movement and Occupy Wall Street through the social media, and how those same characters who caused all of this now pop up on the scenes, like the Mr. Warren Buffetts, the George Soros types of guys, the Al Gores. You see these movie stars. And so to go to where you see in Egypt, who took over Egypt when the people overthrew Mubarak? The military. Who arms the military? the United States with $2 to almost $3 billion a year. So when I look what's happening in the United States, I see the Michael Moores coming out. I see the Jesse Jacksons. I see the Susan Sarandons. I see all these types of people who haven't been nowhere around while all this poverty been going on. Now all of a sudden, the light is coming. Now you got Jesse Jackson out there in New York. I'm waiting to see which politician going to show up down here in Miami one of these days to get a photo op.
Yeah, good call. I'm wondering that myself. I saw Jesse Jackson out there last night. And, of course, the cops behaved themselves when he was out there.
Yeah.
It's amazing what happens. We're going to break. Stay tuned, guys. We'll be right back. I'm going to clarify something I said last segment.
All right.
Because I know that some of the people in the chat room here listening to us, I don't want you guys thinking I'm anti, cannabis. I'm not. I'm for, I'm all about cannabis freedom and decriminalization and stuff. But I don't think people should be smoking it at a public event on county property while trying to protest and bring attention to serious issues, because unless it was like a pot protest of some sort, then maybe that would fit in. But that's just going to give them the ammo they need to come in and clean house and arrest everybody there and then say, no, now you can't do anything because the last time there were people smoking pot out here. So I don't want anybody thinking that I'm being a downer or I'm being a jerk or I'm picking on any of the, the people that smoke. That's far from it. Okay. But it's important to, not give your enemy the ammo they need to bury you with. And that would be retarded. Should we just drive up and I mean, we already pretty much gave the Chinese, our economy, but should we just give the Chinese all of our weapons and everything and just say, yeah, I mean, all the personal weapons that people in the country have and just say, come and invade us, come get us, or whoever else you'd like, whatever other country you'd like, to play the part of the invading force. I mean, it's that dumb. So don't give the police the reason to do stuff. And personally, I don't believe that's what they were doing when some people were smoking there. They were just smoking or whatever, just using bad judgment. But I did notice, and this is from other people on the ground telling me this that are there, that there is this push almost to kind of, some of them are pushing to try to be confrontational with the police. And at least here in Miami, there hasn't been a reason yet to be confrontational with them. The guys over at Mobilize Miami secured the paperwork necessary. It wasn't even a permit, but it was some paper saying, yeah, we're going to be here, from, and then, starting on this date. And it was basically they just letting them know, giving them a name to come to if they needed to talk to. And the media was going to him, constantly. And then, of course, the organizers tried to, and not that he's out trying to take credit or anything, but these people, like, literally, if he hadn't secured the paperwork, then there wouldn't be that tent city at Government Center, because they kept trying to tell everybody to go down to the torch, which is, these people are so dumb. That whole thing is a Illuminati symbol. It's a half-moon crescent. On the wall of the half-moon crescent, there's 3 evenly spaced eyes inside of pyramids on those seals that are against the back of it. There's a never-ending eternal flame, which is an Illuminati symbol, in the center. And on either side is a statue of 2 Illuminati puppets. One of them was Ponce de Leon, and the other one, I forget who the other one is, on the other side. So you got these 2 Illuminati puppets on either side, these statues venerating them, and then this Masonic thing, in between them, and then they dedicate it to JFK. And if anybody knows anything about JFK, the flame in Arlington and the flame that they have down in Dallas are all, they're both Illuminati symbols. They're both in your face, like we did it. Diana has a flame above the tunnel where she was killed in, and on her gravesite too. Yeah, and this is not a joke. This is really there. You can go look this up. This is, occultic, which is hidden. That's all the occult means. So it's hidden symbolism of this faction called the Illuminati. Okay, it's not some conspiracy theory, and I'm doing air quotes. It's not some tinfoil hat crap. This is the real deal. And these guys wanted to go down and protest there. And I had one of them tell me, I guess she meant well, but she was just one of the ones, that I guess you could categorize as a useful idiot. And she was like, well, it's got a certain symbolism and meaning to it, and that's why we want to come here. And I was like, you have no idea what kind of symbolism or meaning it has. You should really do the research before you just blindly, well, this is what they say it means. Well, why don't you go research it and see what it means instead of just, going for it. Anyway, they didn't, I don't want to digress too much into that. The quote-unquote organizers never really had any backup plan, and then they had to leave the torch because they didn't want to get arrested. So everybody went down to Government Center, where Mobilize Miami had everything set up because they knew what was going to happen. So they had already taken care of it. And then a couple of days later, they're running around, and they had this. They've had confrontations where a couple feminists have come up to them and started fights with them. And then they were like, "Look, you need to calm down," and they'd be trying to talk to her. And then these quote-unquote wannabe organizers would come in and, why don't we talk about this man-to-man? And they try to chest up and be tough guys and all this other crap. And it's the same stuff. I don't know if you saw it at the first meeting, but at the second meeting they were doing it. I know you missed that one. They were pulling that where a lot of people were talking, and there were women that had ideas, but they weren't raising their hands. They were just sitting there all quiet. So one of them, Groucho, gets up and he's like, why is everybody being so sexist? Why can't we let the women speak too? Men, you should be quiet and let the women speak. Women have tons to say. And he sat and pontificated for like 5 minutes about why we should let the women talk. And it's like, dude, and there were guys, we were just standing there, and there were people, we were all looking at each other like, why is this guy even talking? He needs to shut up. If the girls want to talk, if the women want to talk, whatever you want to call them, the females, if they want to talk, let them raise their hand like everybody else. They just weren't raising their hand or stepping up. Some of them were.
On Facebook, and they tried to rip a hole.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. That's what happens. And even, it's funny that little clip said Facebook, because even on their Facebook page, they had the same thing where they were attacking anybody that one person on their page asked if anybody liked Ron Paul. That's all he asked. And there were people that jumped all over him and said, Ron Paul was the reason for the problems, blah, blah. And I was like, wow, you can't be that ignorant that you actually think he's the reason for the problem. He's the only guy that actually voted against it. You can go see his record. But they don't know any of that, Jerrald.
You know what's funny? Sorry for...
No, go on.
But a guy out there, one of the first couple of speakers, he brought up Ron Paul, and those same characters was that was like blasphemy or something. It's like, don't speak that man's name. And like I said last time, hey, I'm not a supporter of Ron Paul, but I believe in almost everything about Ron Paul, especially when it comes to our monetary policy. I just disagree with him on a lot of his other issues. But when it comes to monetary policy, I'm behind Ron Paul 1,000%, because he is the only person I've ever heard in political office talk about the monetary system in America. And for those people out there, when this man brought up that, and a little kid brought up Ron Paul, those people looked at those people like they was crazy. And I say, that's when I realized, I say, I can't wait till I get up here and speak to these people, because these characters really are out here basically for nothing then if you don't understand what Ron Paul is about. And that's what's so scary about how I say this movement has, I don't know what didn't happen, because they're not talking about the economic policy of America. These people are talking about grievances that they have for themselves and don't truly understand that Ron Paul is always the only one talking about a true solution to our problem in America. Complaining about your job or you lost your job, he's the only one talking about getting rid of all these trade agreements. He's the only one talking about bringing our military troops back. He's the only one talking about getting rid of the Federal Reserve and making it where his money is not interest. That's the only person that's talking about it. So when these people was telling people don't mention Ron Paul and hey man, there's not no political type stuff, I'm like, boy, these characters, I see it in New York. You don't see them talking about these issues in New York either. And that's
it's collectivism. It's this collectivism think where they have to have the group consensus. They all do that creepy thing with the wiggle fingers, whatever they call it. Okay, that crap, that is cult-like behavior. That is all of you people partaking in that. Do not think that you're doing anybody a favor by not clapping and applauding them. That is ridiculous. No. You're being stifled and controlled.
That's what that is. But see, if you're not military, you wouldn't understand those tactics. You know what I mean? See, that's how the military is. It gets you thinking one. So when they tell you to go attack that bunker, you do it without thinking. Even though you sit there and say, well, damn, why the hell am I going to go over that bunker where you can just see an airplane and drop a bomb on that motherfucker? Why you want me to, you know what I mean? It's that. So when they had us out there, like I say, I was brought over into the circle. So when these guys was talking about wiggle your fingers and you're going to have a facilitator and a dragon, I can't comprehend that because that's
what is this dragon crap? See, this dragon crap, that starts to touch on the occult and everything else. I'm going to have you get into that when we come back because we're going to break, Jerrald. When we come back, I'm going to have you get into this whole dragon thing because I want to know more about this. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's the final segment of the first hour, but don't worry, there is hour number 2 yet to come. So stay with us. Before we went to break, Jerrald was talking about they have a position called Dragon, and I automatically was like, wow, a kind of a cultish name, interesting choice of name, but. When Jerrald explained what the person does, I kind of understood, I guess, a little bit at least where the play on words that they used for it. So it's still kind of an interesting name, nonetheless, that they chose to call it that. But Jerrald was telling me that they are the people that if, like, say Jerrald was one of these facilitators, we'll call them, okay, and they're up there and they're talking about green whatever, and they're just wasting everybody's time, whatever the hell they're doing up there, speaking about nothing. And I'm in the crowd and I say, well, what about talk about the Federal Reserve? And they don't like that. The dragon is the person that comes in and literally puts hands on me and pulls me out of the crowd. And they said that the people they would be removing would be called the agitators out of the crowd. And I'm going to let Jerrald, tell you from his viewpoint exactly what happened. But I'll tell you what, if I was in a crowd and and I made a comment about the Federal Reserve and somebody, I don't care who it is, you could come up flashing, some sort of fake badge and trying to pretend that you know who you are. I don't know you from Adam. You come up and put your hands on me and touch me. I'm going to break your hands at your wrists so that you learn a lesson never to put your hands on me again. So that would be a really bad idea. And to me, that's the kind of stuff where it's almost like they're trying to foment violence. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to push useful idiots to do stupid things like put hands on somebody, which is just going to lead to a fist fight or something. So, I mean, that's what I see from my point of view. Jerrald, go ahead and tell them, kind of what you experienced. You were telling me they came to you and I guess asked you to like be a facilitator or whatever, be involved. And then give me your view on it. Like, do you think the same thing, that they're trying to foment violence?
Yeah, I think what they're doing is going to agitate people. Again, what the dragon is, you have the facilitators and you have a whole bunch of different titles for people. You have the note taker, you have the person who's writing down everything people are saying. And what got me was the dragon. The dragon is the person who's going to basically be the bodyguard or to survey the crowd and to, make sure anybody that's being hostile or belligerent is escorted out. And when I saw that, I realized right then, and I'm like, I didn't come here for this. I came here because I felt that this movement can move forward with getting rid of this economic policy we have in America. I didn't come there to be putting my hands on nobody. I didn't come there to be no facilitator. I came there to try to hopefully open people's eyes and to be able to speak to people about what we're truly up against and maybe even bring up some solutions to the masses. But I'm not for putting my hands on nobody. That's not what I'm about. I'm not there to be facilitating some collective mindset where have everybody wiggle their fingers in agreement. Hey, in life, it's going to be a lot of times you're not going to agree with nobody. But if I'm going to come to a group, I'm definitely not going to be part of no group that's got me wiggling my damn fingers. I'm 41 years old. I'm not 2. I'm not 3.
I agree. I'm not.
You know, that's that stuff where you tell your kid, "Hey, it's time out." Hey, man, I'm not in kindergarten. These are adults. We have adult problems. Adults get into arguments. Adults kiss, make up, and we keep moving forward. But when you want me to go and drag somebody out of a crowd, hey, man, that's an assault. That's illegal. You can't do that.
I thought we were all protesting together. I thought we were all on the same team. Well, agitators. And you know, they try to act like they know what agent provocateurs are, but they don't even know what to call them. They call them, I mean, this is the socialist speak. For people that don't understand, there's a thing called word magic. And I'm not talking about David Blaine type magic or Harry Potter type magic. Look up word magic. Mark Passio talks about it. He's going to be on my show next week. We're going to be talking about this. Go watch Kymatica. Ben Stewart talks about it in that movie. And they have a certain way of using word magic and switching certain words around to do things. And at the event, they didn't call them agent provocateurs. They kept calling them corporate provocateurs. Talk about social speak, like socialist speak. I said, and I corrected them. I said, they're not called corporate provocateurs. They're called agent provocateurs. Most of the time, they're the police or military. Sometimes they're private security, but 9 times out of 10, it's the police and the military.
Yeah.
Hence the term agent provocateur. And they looked at me like, it's all Wall Street that runs everything.
No. See, and see, that's my problem with these people who don't understand. Wall Street is just playing the game. It's not. Again, when you have private banks dictating the entire world's economic policy, and if you don't believe in what they want, they send them jackals out to get you. That's why I hope when you ever get a chance and you bring on Mr. Perkins, John Perkins, the Confessions of an Economic Hitman, people will understand what I mean when I'm talking about they bring them jackals out. And when them jackals don't work, they bring the United States military out after your ass. And that's what I'm witnessing right here. You know, it's the switch. They done switched it on the population because those people down there, they're not talking about the jobs that's being shipped out. They're not talking about offshoring. They're not talking about NAFTA. They're not talking about GATT. Obama just passed his little trade agreement with Colombia, South Korea, and Panama. They're not talking about that. They wasn't even addressing that. I got up there and spoke that about these people. And it's like, it's that collective mindset. Watching a commercial all day and got you. Soon as you get in your car, and you drive down the street, you see a McDonald's sign. You got to pull into McDonald's and get your something to eat. That will destroy this movement. That is destroying this movement because these people then co-opted the movement. Again, when we saw Michael Moore talking about capitalism as the problem, right then, you see MSNBC, CNN, all these news networks picked up off of that. Now you see all these people down there with these signs. We're the 99. No, you're not the 99. You're the 99.99. And those that 0.1% are the ones who are dictating, and you don't even know who they are. They're not Bill Gates. They're not Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is not writing the economic policy of the United States.
That's a joke. Anybody?
But you see who they got on TV? Warren,
of course, I know, and people buy into that stuff, Jerrald.
Tax me. No, Warren Buffett. I'm not after your money, Warren. I want the people to understand. You see, that's how they narrowed the focus on.
Well, what do you think about Russell Simmons?
Again, you think about it. You're talking about guys who had already made their money from whoever they made their money from. They are distracting the population. It's not the rich people. The rich people are playing the game. The rich people didn't write this shit up. It's those people that sit at the Bank of International Settlements. It's the people at the Federal Reserve Bank. It's the people who printing this currency. who are giving the money to the politicians and doing what and having the politicians push their agenda and make it law.
Well, you can tell the people that they speak to don't even have and there's no logical thinking going on, Jerrald. Because if there was any logical thinking, any critical thinking going on whatsoever for 5 minutes, okay, they would look at Russell Simmons is a perfect example. He's like, yeah, he's hanging out with all the people. Yeah, down capitalism, blah blah blah. Hey Russell, if it weren't for capitalism, you wouldn't be where you are today, buddy.
Exactly.
So you're going to talk out of both sides of your mouth. He's a millionaire, if not on his way to being a billionaire, and he's going to tell you that the rich should be taxed more. But the problem is, who defines what rich is? If you make $100,000, they consider that to be rich. Well, with the way inflation is, no, not really.
You know what's sad though, Popeye? See, that's what I always try to make people understand. Again, website www.jerraldpresident.info. What I always try to make people understand is, if you go and you read to make if you make $150,000 a year, you are in the top 5% in the United States of America. $150,000 puts you in the top 5%. So what these people tell me, they have no idea. What is it who can print up $1 trillion? What is that person? What is a bank that can print up any amount of currency, or any bank that can use fractional reserve banking and to put it into circulation? That's power. Russell Simmons has no power. He is distracting people. Michael Moore has no power. Warren Buffett has no power. They're not the ones. It's the one who can print up $1 trillion and just put it in your bank account. That's the power. And to give and to make presidents, that's the power. And to have that president follow his agenda. If I want that country's oil, damn it, I put that money in your bank account. You are where you are because of what I did. You better put them boys over there in Afghanistan. You better go secure them oil fields in Libya. You better make sure you destroy everything over there in Africa. And we want the entire Middle East. And you better ship them arms over there and keep giving Israel its $3 billion. And you better keep arming the Egyptian military. That's what you better do. And you're going to keep these drones dropping bombs on poor, innocent people who ain't have nothing to do with anything. Just target practice. These some gangsters, Popeye. And
they are gangsters for real. Guys, stay tuned. Jerrald, I got to cut you off because we're going to break. Guys, stay tuned. I want you to hang out and do not leave because we got hour number 2 coming up. We're back in a few minutes. We just got to pay the bills. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. You can get up for a few minutes or maybe stretch your legs. Welcome back for hour number 2, ladies and gentlemen. This is Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your humble host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. Welcome back. We're hanging out with my friend Jerrald President. As always, it's a pleasure, Jerrald, because, we can our conversations flow, and you're real, so it's easy to talk to you. It's not, I don't have to, try to drill you to get your opinion on things. You're willing to give it out. You spit knowledge. I appreciate what you do at your website. I've tried, I've promoted it every time I do an interview on with you. In the archive, I always throw up a link to it. I will with this one. I'll throw a link up to it. Why don't you give out to the listeners the web address and any YouTube channels or anything else you have that they can check you out on?
All right. And you can hit me on JerraldPresident.info. Again, that's JerraldPresident.info. That's my website. I deal with all policies, newspaper articles all around the world, dealing with the everyday struggle that we as humans go on and go through in this planet. Also with my brother, Christopher Wells, he videos me, and we put the videos up on my YouTube channel, which is Jerrald President, Jerrald President, one word. And with that, you can always watch, because once a month, he films me, and we put it right to the world and let the world see exactly what my perception is of what goes on in the economic struggles. You can also hit me up on Facebook at Jerrald President, Jerrald, President, like the President of the United States. You can hit me up on Facebook. You hit me up on YouTube. You can go on my website. I'm not going to give you an opinion, people. I'm always going to give you the facts. And like Popeye said, I'm a real person. I work every day for a living. I'm not one of those people that's going to sit here and try to blow smoke up your butt. But you have a lot of people out there that are purely politicians who want to deceive you. I'm not here to deceive you. I'm here to just spit the knowledge to you people and just give you what I've gathered throughout these last 25 years on this planet. So again, that's JerraldPresident.info. That's my website. You can also reach me on Jerrald President at Facebook or just Jerrald President, one word, on YouTube. And you can see all the videos done by my brother Chris Wells. And it's always done perfectly. Thank you, Popeye.
No problem, Jerrald. And you brought up a good point during the break when we were talking about Jesse Jackson. I said that, Martin Luther King Jr. would probably smack him across the face. And you said he wouldn't even bother being in the same room with him, which I think is probably more to the point because Dr. King was for nonviolence. Although I do think he would have probably wanted to kick Jesse's rear end at least once between, over the past 40 years. But you made a really good point. Jesse Jackson's a member of the Council on Foreign Relations.
And isn't that amazing? This is a preacher. He's a preacher. And see, that's why when you see the characters like him and the guy who's Richard Trumka, the head of the CIO, and you see that these people are members of the Council on Foreign Relations. And again, people, I'm not giving you an opinion. Go to the Council on Foreign Relations website. Go to their website and look at their members. They don't hide it from you. And so you had to wonder, why is the guy who's the head of the largest trade union in the United States, why is he part of the Council on Foreign Relations? Why is Jesse Jackson, a preacher, part of the Council on Foreign Relations? And then you see these people out there in New York, and they're talking about taxing the rich. They're distracting you. They're not talking about the Federal Reserve. They have not once mentioned the Federal Reserve. But again, people, these people are members of the Council on Foreign Relations. So Americans, people around the world who are listening to this broadcast, stop watching these shows on television. If you do watch them, Google that person's name or go to these websites, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Bank of International Settlements website, go to the World Health Organization website, go to the International Monetary Fund's website, go to the World Bank's website. Don't take my word. Don't take Popeye's word. Don't take anybody's word. Go and read these documents yourself so you can understand what you're fighting. Occupy Miami, you are being led down a path that you don't want to be down because it's going to still be NAFTA. It's still going to be GATT. It's still going to be CAFTA. It's still going to be all these trade agreements. You're going to still have your military all around the world. So when your kids are graduating and they can't find a job, but it is a job for them, maybe part-time at Walmart where they're stocking shelves, blame yourself, people. Blame yourself. Blame yourself.
I agree, because you can't, if you allow yourself to fall prey to this and you fall for this crap without, if you don't do the research, you have not only me, Jerrald's on with me, agreeing with me, because he's done the research as well. We both are telling you the same thing. Don't think that we're accurate. Think that, you can prove us wrong. And when you go do the research, you'll see for yourself. Why don't you go research what Dr. King's family, how they feel about who really killed their fathers, their husband. Go see how they feel. They don't think James Earl Ray did it.
No.
They think he's innocent. They had a civil trial about 5 or 6 years ago, and they came to the conclusion with the help of William Pepper, who is an attorney and slash investigator, writer, author, I guess you could say. And if it weren't for Pepper and King's family, you wouldn't know that his own family doesn't think that James Earl Ray did it. They went to James Earl Ray's funeral. They told him when he was in jail that they think he was innocent. There was a civil trial. And you know what the civil trial found? I know what it found. You know what it found, listeners? I know Jerrald knows. It found that there was a plot by the United States government, including the CIA, the FBI, and Army intelligence, to kill Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Go look it up. This isn't a joke, right, Jerrald? This is not me being, some conspiracy theorist nut. This is fact.
All they have to do is just go to the Library of Congress. Just go to the Library of Congress and type in COINTELPRO. You can pull it up through the Library of Congress and read the COINTELPRO documents, and you will see that our government was complicit and conspired to get rid of all of those people. From Malcolm X to all the members of the Ku Klux Klan to all the members of the Black Panther Party. So when we're talking about what me and Popeye are talking about right now, this is not opinions. Again, people, all you have to do is just go to the documents. Sometimes I don't understand why Americans just don't want to read. It's so
because they're too lazy. They've been dumbed down with all the mind control, and like Charlotte Iserby talks about the dumbing down, where everything's about instant gratification. And she warned in her book long ago that they were going to use computers to end up trying to replace books and stuff in school. And look what they're doing now.
It's done. They even getting rid of the teachers. Not all the classes. It's mandatory that these high school kids have an online class. People, that's eliminating the teacher. That's eliminating you having contact. Next is going to be, ain't no need to go to school. You can stay at home and do your schoolwork. We have been conditioned this way. Again, it's that collective mindset. It's that collective mindset. And it's pretty scary. Again, they're not hiding this information, America. They're not hiding this information from you. Right now, it is what they find out that it's $235 trillion in derivatives by the 4 major banks in the United States. $235 trillion. And here you have people out here talking about tax the rich. With Council on Foreign Relations member Jesse Jackson and Council on Foreign Relations member Richard Trumka and Mr. Michael Moore, who, if I'm correct, I don't think he owns any corporations neither.
Yeah, but he's controlled by plenty of them.
That's why he's talking about capitalism.
Of course, see, he's a red herring in himself. Michael Moore, look what he did with 9/11. And when We Are Change confronted him and said, why don't you ask real questions about 9/11? He said, because that would be unpatriotic. So that should tell you where he stands.
Why didn't he even have Building 7 on his movie?
Yeah, exactly. That's the key point right there. Why didn't you even ask about that?
I mean,
that would be un-American, Jerrald. Hang on right there. Listeners, stay tuned. We're going to break. We're back in 3 minutes. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. During the break, Jerrald and I were discussing, people, you'll get, we should just take them on and blah, 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 blah. And that's what they want. They want that anger and that violence because they already have everything in place for that contingency. They already know. They've got the camps ready. They've got Rex 84. They've got the militarized police. Jerrald, you know firsthand, that the police are being militarized, and I know it disgusts you, especially being a veteran. You're like, what's the deal? Speaking of that, did you get a chance to see the Marine Sergeant versus the NYPD cops?
I was highly impressed, Popeye.
Yeah,
I was, and I noticed how they stood back when this guy spoke.
Did you see the look in their eyes?
It was a look of fear. But you know what? They need more people like him and myself who are ex-military and yourself ex-military to speak about these issues because, like the man said, he done served all these tours over there in Afghanistan and Iraq. And then he come back to his own country. Those people, that they don't have any weapons. Why are you beating them up in the streets? But yet you got Hillary Clinton going over there with Libya, talking about I'm with you. Over there in Egypt, talking about I'm with you. It's okay for those people to do it. But when Americans do it, we have Mr. Bloomberg want to send NYPD, the most militarized police department in the United States. to go and beat people down with billy clubs. With billy clubs. They're beating those American citizens. See, that's the thing. What they need to do, all those people out there, what they need to have in their hand is the Constitution and to show them their rights. Freedom of speech should never be abridged. You cannot.
Well, see, that's what people need to do. If you know you're going to get it, like if you're at that point where you know you're going to get arrested, you should have a pocket constitution, or a bunch of you should have a pocket constitutions on you, or a big, people should be going down there with posters of the Constitution and holding that up. And as the cops are beating people down, you want a really good picture for the front of the mainstream media newspapers and all these news, websites. You want something for all the alternative media put out there for the world to see? Let the NYPD beat somebody down holding a copy of the Constitution in their hands. Wouldn't that make for an interesting photo?
But that's not what they're going to. They're going to show you a damn photo of a 99% of somebody with some dumbass mask on their face. That's what they're going to show. But that's what they should. Because no matter what, I always have the Constitution with me. I always have the Constitution. I have my Bill of Rights. Because I always make people understand, hey, you have amendments that protect your freedom of speech. The Fourth Amendment protects you from unlawful search and seizure. You can't, see, that's the thing. They know you don't know your rights, so they can violate your rights. See, that's why I speak like I speak, Popeye, because I understand and I know the First Amendment. I know the First Amendment. You cannot abridge my right to speak. And especially on public ground, now on private property, that's a total different story. But on public grounds, you can speak all day long. So this garbage with these permits, that's BS. The Constitution gives you the right for free speech. That's what those people out there need. That's why I love what that Marine said. I love that. And he was so correct. Like he said, my mama, my daddy are both ex-military. I'm ex-military. How am I going to be in my own country and you're going to turn people who, now got to remember, the police department is subsidized by the taxpayers. I subsidize. But when you see NYPD getting money from, what was it, JP Morgan, $4.5 million, $4.1 million, you say, well, why are they giving this private bank, giving this police department this little gift? And then you see, they was on 60 Minutes just 2 weeks ago, talking about how militarized they are and how they have special stuff to shoot their airplanes. Now, if I'm correct, Popeye, again, I don't think the people in New York had anything to do with those buildings, whether you believe it was done by the government or done by somebody from another country in a fucking cave. But if I'm correct, the people in New York had nothing to do with it. So why are the police treating these people like they are in a third world country, like in Argentina with Pinochet, beating down the people who just want to walk the streets and protest? You got to wonder what is going on. But again, last time I talked about, Popeye, New York is the only city where it's illegal to have and for your Second Amendment. They violate your Second Amendment rights every day in New York.
Oh, yeah.
So,
and Bloomberg acts like a tyrant. Look what he did to, what's his name? Plaxico Burgess. Yeah. He made an example out of him purposely. And that guy, he shot himself in the leg. He already got shot by himself. Okay, so that's a double whammy. Not only did he get shot, but he did it himself. So now he looks like an ass, and you're going to go and throw him in jail because he had a gun? See, that was Bloomberg. That was a psyop. That was a psychological operation to set a point across to everybody else.
That's what that was.
Look, this guy is he's this spotlight, in the spotlight athlete. Everybody knows who he is, and he's not above the law. So if he's not above the law, none of you are above the law. Don't have guns. Don't try to defend yourself. In the city of New York, call the police. Which, if anybody's ever called the cops anywhere, the cops are never going to make it there in time to save you from getting stabbed or shot. They usually make it when you're bleeding out and the person's already run away by that time. You're in law enforcement, Jerrald. Police cannot save everybody. It's impossible. There aren't enough cops in the world. Just like the T-shirt says, you can see them at gun shows. I carry a gun because a cop is too heavy.
But I'll say this. See, one thing people have to remember. The police and all law enforcement have been co-opted by the federal government. And when you have budgets that's being cut back and you have the federal government funding your department, you're going to do what it comes down from the federal government because you want those funds constantly coming in. You want that overtime constantly coming into you because little Joy got to stay in that private school. And my other wife and my other girlfriend, hey, I got to keep them rent payments up. And don't forget, I'm on child support for another couple of children I got out there. So I'm not going to rock the boat, even though I know I'm violating your civil rights. I'm violating your constitutional rights. See, that's the thing I loved about that guy that was that Marine, that he spoke out. Now, I don't know if he's active duty. I don't even know if this guy was a plant. But one thing I do know is he was on point when he said, these are American citizens, and why are you treating them this way? That's the thing that people keep forgetting. We're all American citizens. We're citizens of the world. You should not be treating. But again, they're not supposed to be protecting private property. That's on that private industry's responsibility to go hire their own security. The police are supposed to protect and to serve. But I want you to check out this, Popeye. Next time you see any police vehicles ride by, look on the side of that car and see if you see anything that says protect and to serve. That's not on the side of any police vehicle anymore. It's those little small things that people don't remember. I remember growing up and it was always on the side of a police car to protect the community, to protect and serve the community. Not to protect and to serve the private interest banks who stole my pension fund, J.P. Morgan Chase, partly owned by Mr. Warren Buffett and his $10 billion loan to him. So come on, and it's so sad, Popeye, because all law enforcement's pensions have been stolen.
Oh yeah, the cops and the firefighters are getting ripped off left and right.
But then they go against their own people and they see what's happening. See, again, it's that collective mindset.
It is. Even in their own little group, they become a little collective hive mind. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're going to break. We'll be back in 3 minutes.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories concerning the attacks of September the 11th. Malicious lies that attempt to shift the blame away from the terrorists themselves, away from the guilty.
People are always asking me, yo, Gemini.
See, Jerrald, he was trying to tell us even then, don't believe my lies, Cheney's lies. Don't think that 19 guys from a cave being led by some dude on dialysis could outwit NORAD and a multi-billion-dollar a year defense industry. And now we need even more bombs and special weapons and stuff, and we need to go bomb more people and spend more money. Yeah, I don't believe it, and that's what George was trying to tell us back then. He was trying to tell us that outrageous conspiracy theories that Al-Qaeda did 9/11 is just insane, and that you should actually research it and see that him and Cheney did it.
Yeah. Well.
And when we were at break, I asked Jerrald a question, ladies and gentlemen, and I haven't talked about this on air yet. We did, at least tonight. We've talked about it on other shows I've done, about Occupy Miami, but I wanted to get Jerrald's take on it, and we were coming back in, so I made him stop. I interrupted him, so I'll repeat the question, and then I'll let him answer it. But what happened was apparently and I'm doing air quotes, an off-duty police officer brought a movie projector down for Occupy Miami, and none of them really trust him. But he's trying to gain their trust, and he outed himself as a police officer, and he stated that he did that to try to gain their trust or whatever. Although if I was going to plant myself, that would be the first thing I did, was out myself so that I could, I could gain their trust. That's like the ultimate sacrifice to gain their trust. And, he said, well, if I was going to do it, I would just implant myself and everything else. And who knows, maybe he is legitimate, but it just seems a little shady. From your perspective, what do you think of that whole thing? Do you think that that's, that the guy's legit? Or do you think that's just not how police officers behave? Even though we'd like them to maybe behave that way, that's not how they really do it. What say you, Jerrald?
When it comes to that, it sounds like it could be a plant, you know, and you have all different kinds of ways of how they come and infiltrate organizations. So if he was, I wouldn't understand. I don't understand why would he lie and say he wasn't. It's nothing illegal says he can't. And like I say, actually, I'm in law enforcement. I have no reason to lie to you. I'm not no undercover agent. I'm not trying to infiltrate I'm not trying to infiltrate this group and sabotage it. So for whatever this guy was, his motives was, that's something between him and his maker. It sounds very fishy to me, though. You know, it's really fishy. You know, I just wish people would be honest. You know, when you have, say, for instance, in the city of Miami, they get ready to smash all of those police officers and cut their pay. In Dade County, they're going to do the same thing to the Dade County cops, the firefighters, the teachers that already got smashed. All throughout the state of Florida and all across the United States, they're smashing cops. So I don't understand why would they not even sit there. If you're off duty, you're off duty. Nobody's not doing anything violent. It's not illegal to gather, you know. But you know, when you have a society that's been militarized and the police that's been militarized and sheriffs and chiefs of police need to have this state of constant fear to the population, I can understand why, you know, somebody probably come out there and, you know, BS the people and say he's something that he's not, or saying he's something that he really is. So you have a society that needs that subsidy, that subsidized taxpayer money to keep filling their coffers. So that they're going to always send those type of people out there. You know, so I don't know what this guy was trying to do.
And cops are afraid of losing their jobs now. So they're, you know, and right now I noticed that Miami they delayed it. They didn't say that they're not going to do it.
Exactly.
They just delayed it a little bit longer. So instead of a ton of cops getting fired like 2 or 3 days ago, it'll be maybe another month or 2 or 3 months that they'll have their jobs, and then they'll all get laid off or fired. And you know, I always say all the time, you know, most of these police officers in New York are the same way. They're only one paycheck away from being on the other side of that you know, that barricade and the other side of those batons. So I don't know. You told me that you try to educate your fellow officers. Do you find that they're receptive to what you talk about?
99% are lost. And that's just the honest truth to the population and to the people that's listening to this. The people that's inside, just like teachers are lost, bus drivers, firefighters, they're all lost because they don't understand the policies of our government. So you have guys who I know voted for John McCain, and to say that President Barack Obama destroyed their way of living. And when I try to make them understand, what does the President of the United States have to do with the state of Florida? Nothing. Nothing. The president has nothing to do with why all these jobs in the state of Florida minimum wage. What that has to do with your governor. That has to do with your legislators. You know, I stumbled across a real interesting thing. It was called ALEC.org. ALEC.org. What it is, it's a private business group that flies. Again, it's called ALEC.org. ALEC.org. And it's a private business that filled with thousands of businessmen who have retreats with your state legislators to craft legislation to privatize all of your industries. And so when I deal with the people that's in law enforcement, you find out that 99% of them are Republicans. I always ask them, how could you vote and put these guys in office if these are the same people that's talk about cutting your pay, cutting your benefits? And you know what I always get from them? Hey, because they're going to stop raising my taxes. And then I say this to them, Papa. This is just to show you just how, I'm not even going to call them dumb. I'm just going to call you what type of assholes I deal with. These guys will say, well, I don't want to pay more taxes. I say, well, right now your paycheck comes from people who pay taxes. They don't understand. You understand what I mean, Papa? So if your salary is based on property taxes, but you're saying yet you don't want to pay any more taxes, how are you going to get paid?
Stupid.
But this is the kind of mentality I'm talking about, Popeye.
So they shoot themselves in the feet.
Exactly. Because when they was proposing this legislation, when I think it was Amendment 1, where it was to lower everybody's property taxes, I was in the academy at that time, and everyone was talking about, I'm going to vote yes. And I said, do you understand if you push that in, that's going to eliminate jobs? And they could not understand. And I kept trying to make these guys understand, property taxes fund everything. It funds every job.
If they file for the homestead exemption after I think it's like you have to live in your home for a year, and then the following year you file for the homestead exemption, and they usually you get a discounted rate on your taxes. It costs you next to nothing for property tax. I mean, Florida does, compared to other states, it's pretty cheap already. So we don't have a state income tax.
No.
So the money for police officers has to come from somewhere.
Exactly.
Right.
So, and see, that's the thing, is because our educational system don't. That's why when I was in high school, I can never understand. They never took, if you come in a poor community, they don't take the kids to see how the legal profession works. They take you to the damn zoo. They take you to go see stuff that's really irrelevant to the way how life functions. They don't take you to City Hall. But then I never saw a county commissioner. I never saw a state representative. That's not where they send poor communities. And I'm talking about 99% of all the schools. I don't know what high school or junior high school, or elementary school you went to, Popeye. Did they take you to the field trip and took you to the damn ocean and let you play with sea urchins and took you to the sea aquarium? Did they take you to the damn zoo? This is what they do. So it automatically dumbs you down, and you never understand how government works.
They took us to the court when I was a kid.
Oh, they took you to the court. See, they never took us to the... See, that's the difference.
Well, we were like a bunch with the one class, our law class, most of the kids in class, it was ironic, most of the kids that took this law class were like the kids that were always getting in trouble. I guess it was, we were trying to figure out the law so we could get around it. And our teacher made us go like once a week to court. And the judge was my mother's attorney, and he was a family friend. But my mother had, put a call into him beforehand to like put a scare into me. He told me, your mother told me it doesn't matter. If you ever come in front of me, I will put you away, blah, blah, blah. So I used to sit in awe. And, I was like 14 at the time, 13, 14. And I would sit in awe in the back of this courtroom like, oh, my God, I don't want to open my mouth. And after a while, I got comfortable, but I would watch what everybody was going through, and at least I learned somewhat of the court system. I learned something better than, like you said, going to the zoo and looking at the monkeys and the skunkies and the fat lady, too. Guys, we're going to break. Jerrald and I will be back for the final segment, so stay tuned. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the final segment of the Wednesday edition of Down the Rabbit Hole. I'm your host, Popeye from FederalJack.com. I've been hanging out with my buddy, Jerrald President, just rapping, talking about everything from Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Miami, to the mass conditioning of the general public. And we've been discussing as of late, Jerrald being able to try to talk to other police officers because he's a police officer himself. And he was explaining how, stubborn they are. And during the break, he was telling me a perfect example. And why don't you go ahead and tell the listeners, because this is a perfect example because it breaks down at the local level and how local politics as well as national politics, but the local stuff is a microcosm and how it affects everybody, and they don't even realize it. Go ahead and tell them what you were telling me.
Yeah, I was talking about how I have this lieutenant, and he's always known my political persuasions. Like I was explaining to Popeye, I'm one of those guys who voted for Mr. Ralph Nader. At least 3 times I voted for Ralph Nader, and from the 90s into the 2000s, because I believed and his view on how to change the structure. And so this one guy, he voted for Rick Scott. And I asked him, I said, well, what you think is going to happen when this guy comes and smashes and cuts everything? He said, yeah, but I'm for lower taxes and all this, Republican jargon that they spit out. And so what happens? Mr. Rick Scott cuts, I think $2.3 billion or $1.3 billion from education. Whose wife got cut? Was his wife. Now he's upset with Rick Scott because he feels that Rick Scott deceived him. Now, I already was explaining to this character and all the characters that I work with that this guy's going to do the same thing that all the other ones have done. He's going to lie to you, tell you one thing, because you're not listening to what he's talking about. I think what it is they all think that they're going to be rich. And they always forget that they're subsidized by property taxes. The state of Florida has no state tax. It's a sales tax. So every government service is propped up by property taxes or float municipal bonds. Well, what happens when people don't have jobs? Hey, that means there's no money coming in. That means I'm going to lose my home. That means no property taxes are being collected. That means government services have to be cut back. And that's what happens with law enforcement, all public sector jobs. They never understand the correlation between property taxes and their own way of living. And that's the scariest thing is that they don't know that. These guys don't know it. And you will be like, wow, all these police officers and firefighters, they vote for all these Republicans. You always see these Republicans come and they always talking about they're for law enforcement. We're going to increase your budget. And then you see what happened when they get in there. They cut everything. But one thing they didn't cut was the subsidies to the businesses. So we're going to privatize everything. And so what if, like this lieutenant whose wife was in the school system, she didn't got laid off. Now, look at this guy. What a moron. Because he believed in that garbage that Rick Scott was spewing. Now look what they did. Now if you're getting welfare, you got to take a drug test. Who you got to go to? His old company, Soul Atlantic. But I'm sorry, it's what his wife, he had to divest himself. And his wife has to come.
Yeah, that's my favorite. They say that, oh, well, he doesn't make any money now because it's all in his wife's name. And I'm like, well, where does Rick sleep at night? In bed with his wife? Oh, yeah. So do you think that maybe he has access to that money then? Nuts?
But, but see, again, these guys pull the wool over all these law enforcement, these blue-collar workers, whatever you want to call it. To me, workers work. These ex-military guys who believe in this Republican mantra, just like the teachers who believe in the Democratic mantra, and they both smash them. You got the Republicans pull back all the funding, cut all the funding to all these schools. They cut all the funding to every local county. And then what the county got to do? Got to lay off, got to cut services. It's the same thing. And on the federal level, you have the president pushing his economic and his education plan, the race to the top, which really is a race to the bottom. What they doing? Privatizing all the schools with this charter school scheme. And they laying off teachers. So you get it from both sides. And again, these people ain't listening to Ron Paul. They don't want to hear what Ron Paul have to say. They don't want to hear about the Federal Reserve. They want to hear, I guess, what the hell Arnold Schwarzenegger doing in his bedroom. That's what they want to hear, who getting voted off of American Idol. That's what they want to hear. They don't want to hear the real stuff. But I'm sorry, America. I'm sorry, world. I'm going to always speak the truth to people. So even though where I work at is inside that beast, I'm going to always speak because I want these people to understand. I'm fighting for you. I want you to understand what I'm talking about. So when your kids graduate, they don't have to go to college and pay $30,000 a year to get a degree in worthlessness. And then where they are, back at home with your monkey ass and unemployed. And now you're looking at your kid like my kid is a piece of garbage. Well, you've been living off the taxpayers your whole life, Daddy. It's that disconnect that Americans, again, look at all the southern states. All the poverty is in the southern states. All the Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia and Florida, Missouri are the most poorest states. Who they elect? Republicans. Why? I'm for illegal immigration. I'm against gay marriage. All these BS things. But never once do they talk about, I'm also for globalization and shipping these jobs out of America. You know, oh, yeah, we're going to bring a BMW factory. Oh, yeah, but the wages, they're going to have to be like the wages that's in, say, China. So even though you're putting together a $100,000 car, we're only going to pay you $12 or maybe, if you're lucky, $15 an hour. Again, you will be amazed to find so many people in law enforcement that vote for Republicans and so many teachers that vote for Democrats, and then they both shaft them. They both stick 12 inches up inside of them. And
I agree 110%, and they're going to do it to every one of them. They do not care.
No, I mean, think about it. These people, Broward County laid off 1,400 teachers. Those are people who have college degrees. It's bad enough all these service industry jobs are serving you some burgers, selling you something inside of a store, selling you some shoes. That's the economic policy of America. Every job is to be a service sector job. There's no industries. They've deindustrialized the United States, and now they're militarizing the police departments. Why do you think they're building up all the prisons? They didn't cut the funding for the prisons. And then who they going to do? They're turning it over to a private company. Just like we talked last time, Popeye. Look at 95. Don't ride down 95 after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Get one of those $8 SunPass pops. These some gangsters, man. They're gangsters, and they go and hire poor people to do their bidding while they behind the veiled curtain throwing grapes. It's pathetic. But again, these guys are voting for Republicans. Teachers are voting for Democrats. And what happens? Teachers then got laid off. They kind of get, watch and see what I'm telling you people, your listeners right now. Watch and see what happened in Dade County. Those police officers expect 25, 30% pay cuts. And if they don't accept them, you're out the door. Here's your pink slip. Just like those highly firefighters, the 40% reduction in force. You're going to lay off 40% of the workers? 40%. So now what this going to do to the tax base? It's going to destroy the tax base again. And then what they're going to do, going to come back next year and lay off more workers.
Yeah, because it's like a or vicious cycle where it's eating itself, because the more people you lay off, now you have less, because a lot of those people might live in that city.
Exactly.
And there are cities where officers and stuff don't live, but it's not just about cops. It's cops, firemen, EMS, right, teachers, and other city workers that maybe do live within the city limits. Now you lose that taxable income because they can't pay taxes. Now they might have to move out. Good job, morons. And now you're going to have that empty space, and it's a vicious cycle.
More services. See, but if people would just go, if they go to the World Health Organization, you go to IMF, you go to the World Bank, and you just Google structural adjustment program. It's in their own blueprints of how to do this. But these people are not paying attention to that. They don't want to go and see this. And then they would understand what they're up against. Again, you have all these state legislators went to Louisiana to discuss how they're going to privatize the rest of all the public service jobs.
Yeah, and privatization is the other end of the spectrum. That's not good either, because that's just as bad. And you end up with things like Blackwater. Jerrald, we're out of time. Listeners, thanks for hanging out. As always, it's a pleasure. Jerrald will be back on soon, I promise. 2 hours is just never enough time with him. And I'll be back Friday at 10 p.m. Till then, Semper Fi, I'm out.
Whoa.